Hello, I'm your host, Peter Komendowski, and welcome to Surviving Bad, where we explore Iowa stories of survival, hope, and inspiration. Today we're going to explore the harsh reality when things go wrong. What are you going to do? What can you do? How can you turn things around? Our guest, Dr. Richard Newkirk, has invested a lifetime learning and teaching the art of resilience. He's a scientist, a teacher, and a compassionate human being that lives the practice he preaches. Let's meet our guest, Dr. Richard Newkirk. Richard, welcome to the show.
Hi, Peter. It's a joy to be here, and it's been great to know you for the last several years.
Well, tell us a little bit about yourself, because you have quite a storied background. You've done some great brain work, and now you're in the schools as an associate principal. You really have been involved in a lot of great things working with youth and our kids.
Well, I don't want to tell you how old I am, Peter, but I've been around a while, and I started out teaching sixth grade in Pennsylvania, then a guidance counselor in Washington, D.C., then a principal in Des Moines, Iowa, then a superintendent of schools for 22 years. Then I got out of the superintendency and went to the University of Iowa Med School and did a postdoctorate fellowship in neuroanatomy. And after that, I was a university professor in Chicago, taught neuroanatomy, and I was chair of the education department. And then kind of retired the first time, moved back to Ankeny to be with our daughter, and grandchildren are coming along, and now worked at Des Moines Public Schools for 4 years as a guidance counselor and behavior interventionist. And as of late, I've been called in to help with schools with discipline and functioning as an assistant principal at East High School.
Now, one of your specialties, obviously, is resilience and teaching kids how to cope, and adults, but how to cope with these risks. What do you see happening with our youth today that really gets your blood pumping to do this work?
Well, first of all, I'd like this to be encouraging, whatever we say today, to be encouraging, because we're all going to go through some bad stuff. Christ himself said, in this world, you're going to have troubles. And I think you don't have to be a scientist to figure out it goes downhill from when you're born, right? We're going to have troubles. That's guaranteed. Now, understanding that, it seems to me from working with a lot of people, there's three different directions people can go. And I'd like to talk about those, the question you just asked me, but I love to work with kids. And for the most part, kids have a lot of energy, but it can be directed in the wrong way. And that's why I've really been interested in this whole thing of resilience. In fact, if I was going to do another doctorate dissertation, it would be on the kind of the directions all of us go when bad things come around. We can either get angry, we can get apathetic, or we can be attached to our faith and our value system. So I see us going one of those three ways. Unfortunately, a lot of kids get hung up in the anger stage. As you know, many years ago, there were stages of grief and dying that went around: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. Well, that anger stage, it seems to me, kids get caught up in it. And when we get, or adults too, when they go through divorce or whatever it is we go through, it's easy to get hung up in this anger stage and turn to other things for self-medication to get us through the anger stage. Be it shopping, drugs, smoking, overeating, whatever it is, we kind of act out because we're angry.
So, you know, you're dealing with what you're saying is a lot of children that get stuck in that angry part. And now I'm betting that your work as an associate principal puts you right on the front lines of the expression of a lot of that anger. How do you work on channeling that to a more constructive exercise with a child?
You know, I think it's listen. A lot of the kids come from a situation of where they don't have a stable background, don't have maybe mom and dad. They've gone through some things, again, that they're very angry. They need to be listened to. They need to be shown love. All of us want love in our life. And these kids need a lot of loving. A lot of times when they pull away and they seem like they don't want it, is probably when they need it the most. They need to be loved on. So I try to do a lot of that, and trying to get them through that angry stage and part of life.
We hear a lot about teachers being affected by the way kids are in the classroom today. Are teachers prepared for the type of reaction like the anger that we see and the violence we see in schools today?
Are they prepared? Yes. On one side, I would say yes. But again, with all that we're having thrown at us with the COVID and the kids not attending the school, we have a lot of students that get to the campus, but they don't go into class. We have a lot of kids that drop out. So trying to get that all together and understanding that the kids want to be loved on at a time when they seem like they don't, it's a tough sell. So it'd be tough for anybody.
Well, thank you very much. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to continue our conversation with Dr. Newkirk. Stay tuned. You don't want to miss this.
The black truck? Hey, Christina from accounting.
Yeah, hi.
Hey, I used to date a girl named Christina.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then she dumped me for my best friend. You want to see some photos of them that I took?
I don't.
I thought we talked about this, buddy.
Buzzed and overshared again?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna call a car.
That's a smart idea.
So yeah, I know, that's why I did it.
Hey, you're gonna get back to the top of the mountain.
Does that mean I'm gonna get back with Christina?
No.
Oh.
No.
While a lot is changing in our world, at MediaCom, our focus remains the same, making sure you have the fastest, most reliable connection possible. During this critical time, we know your needs are changing. You may be working or learning from home, relying on telemedicine, or finding new ways to keep everyone entertained. If you need more speed, call or go online, and MediaCom will double your speed immediately for as low as $10 more a month for 1 year. Every second, 127 new devices connect to the internet. You can feel it happening, our digital world expanding with every breath. We're entering a whole new era of connectivity, and MediaCom will be ready to power it with one of the nation's first 10G platforms. We'll be bringing you more speed, more capacity, more security, and the power to do more than you ever dreamed possible.
Welcome back to Surviving Bad. I'm your host, Peter Komendowski, and we're talking with Dr. Richard Newkirk about tough times and how you can turn things around when faced with challenges. And some of those challenges, Dr. Newkirk, you talked about anger and apathy. Can you continue the conversation about sort of how kids find their way through those phases?
Well, in dealing with kids for 40 years, again, that first stage that I like to talk about is kids, adults going through harsh times become angry and they abandon their value system, they act out. The second stage that I think some people go through, and it doesn't have to be a stage, but a second option is people just become apathetic. They almost blame God. They don't know what they believe in. They become adrift. I don't know. And I think many times it goes back to how our basic teaching was about God. I call it the Santa Claus God syndrome. If you were raised with this whole thing that if I pray long enough and hard enough, I'll get a bicycle. If I pray long enough and hard enough, I'll get good grades in school. Bad things will go away. I think we've set people up for failure. Now, I don't want anybody to take from this show that I don't believe in prayer. In fact, one of my devotionals the other day was keep on praying. So I believe in the power of prayer. But if you're thinking that you're going to get out of this world alive and never have a problem and have to make some big choices, you're wrong. So if I come to hard times, sometimes I just become apathetic. Oh, I prayed really hard. I prayed really long. It didn't happen. Now, what do I believe in? I mean, where do I go from here? It just, things went downhill. I prayed long and hard, and then I become adrift. I try to search for myself. I try to search for what do I really believe in? And I see people, my wife and I do counseling in the home. I see people just become adrift.
You know, parents have to deal with teenagers, obviously, they raise them. And it's not uncommon for a parent to deal with an angry teenager or an apathetic teenager. You know, the teenager that says, oh, I don't care, or I'm not going to do this. Or, you know, what are some of the interventions? I know you say listening is important, but just to set up a climate of communication and listening between, say, a parent and a teenager is pretty tough. What are some ideas you have for that?
Well, I try to talk about a list of gratitude when people are going through some tough times. In fact, in our counseling, one of the things we do is you don't come back for the second time unless you make a list of 100 things you're thankful for. And I don't care whether that's the air you breathe, but it's making people sit down and say, look, I've got it pretty good. I'm not in a wheelchair. I got all my limbs. You know, again, it can be the air you breathe, it can be the shoes that you're wearing, but you're sitting down, you're reflecting on all the things that you have to be positive about, which are many. So that, along with just trying to show that person love as they go through things, trying to get yourself in a group. We try to get kids in groups of 8 or 10 where they can share and understand that other kids are going, or other people are going through tough times as well. I'm not the only one. I think back to when I went through cancer. One of the best things for me was to talk to another person that had cancer and say, they would tell me, hey, you're going to get through this. Hey, you know, tough times are here, but I made it. You're going to make it. And just that whole thing of encouragement. We need encouragement. What's the good book say? Several times in the New Testament, it says encourage others. That's what we're supposed to do. That's the whole theme of church, really. When you start to look at it, it's fellowship and encouragement. We all need it.
Do you see enough of that going on in school? Are kids rallying together for that, or is it a problem?
You know, why do we form gangs? And you bring up a good point. Why do we have gangs? Kids want family. They want people of like values. They want to hang around with other kids. And maybe the family has broken down. They find other ways to get love and attention. We do the same thing as adults. When we find that we're going through tough times, why do some guys go to the bar and hang out all night? I mean, they're trying to find people that'll listen, talk to them, other people that are going through tough times. Kids are no different than adults.
Yeah, these are great points. So we're going to take a short break and maybe come back and take a closer look at some of the problem-solving strategies you use and how those strategies can not only help people going through tough times, but can help people help other people going through tough times. See you all after the break. You don't want to miss this.
Today, more than ever, you need fast, reliable internet. At Mediacom, we want you to know you can count on us. Our fiber-powered 100% gigabit technology network was built for the future. We have enormous capacity and power and 99.99% network reliability. So even though these are uncertain times, we're prepared. And you can be certain we'll keep your world connected.
Multiple studies have shown that marijuana can slow both driver reaction and response time, which can be really dangerous. He's here. He's here. Wait. What? I can't drive. Why? My. Oh.
Welcome back. We're talking with Dr. Newkirk about finding a way through tough times, sort of looking at the positive side of going through these tough experiences, which are essentially unavoidable, and the stages from anger to apathy and then something else that follows in that progression that Dr. Newkirk's going to share with us. Welcome back.
Yeah, I think the people that I've met that really are successful somehow get to the stage of being anchored and attached to their value system. Now, that can be their belief in God, that can be a number of things. I'm not necessarily preaching, but I'm saying we've all got a value system somewhere deep down inside us. And we just say, okay, just because things went bad, that doesn't mean I flush everything. I become more attached and anchored to my family, my friends, my faith. And what gets me through things is becoming anchored and attached, not angry and apathetic. However, I think probably most of us go through those two other things, that angry and apathetic, maybe before we get totally anchored. So my wife and I try to help our kids and people that we counsel in the home with how to stay anchored and how to stay attached.
You know, looking at it retrospectively, in other words, you meet with a person it's been through some things, and they want to get better skills at dealing with stuff. They want to get stronger, and maybe they have some anchors, family and friends. How do you sort of fine tune this sort of I'm learning on the fly concept when you're helping people?
I look at several different things. Three of the things I look at are gratitude, laughter, and exercise. So gratitude and altruism. One of the best things you can do when you're going through tough stuff is go help others. I mean, it's proven time and time and again in the literature. What helps me the most when I'm going through tough times is reach out to others, and the whole feeling of that aha. And even when we do things scientifically, we know that when we help others, that is an adrenaline lift. It pushes out serotonin, dopamine, another 55 neurochemicals I could spout off, but you'd think I was real smart, and I don't want you to think that, Peter. But it adjusts our mood. It's a mood stabilizer, helping others. So interestingly, that goes back to our faith and some of the things we were taught as kids. We're supposed to help others through this life, and there are some scientific things that are just great about that. And then laughter and exercise. And as well as the gratitude thing. But I said earlier, we tell people, write down 100 things you're grateful for. So doing that along with exercise, we know that whole thing of exercise builds those mood leveling neurochemicals as well.
You know, it's an interesting thing, having been through gratitude exercises, when you sit there, at first it's almost like it's hard to think of what you're grateful for. It's like a whole bunch of ideas that want to jump out of your head at the same time, and none of them get out the door. But once you start writing down these things, boy, it's just like a waterfall gushing forward. There's so many great things. And like you said earlier, we're preoccupied more with the negative things. We don't recognize all the good things and the blessings that we have in our lives.
Oh, that's so well said. You know, I just came back from the optometrist today, and my optometrist said everything is just perfect. Now, approximately a month ago, I heard about a family that went to the optometrist with their child, and the optometrist came out to the family and said, you need to get your child to an ophthalmologist quickly because I can see a tumor behind his eyeball. Okay, so what I'm saying is, you go to the optometrist, you expect a good checkup, you're not even thankful for it until you hear about the kid that, oh, wait a second, not everybody's checkup is perfect, okay? You with me? I'm saying the same thing you're saying. We go day to day. I can walk. I'm not, crippled. I can write. I can see. I can hear. But we take those things for granted until something leaves us. I think of the day that I was diagnosed with cancer. You know, I'm running 5 miles. I come back. My phone goes off, and he says, "You got stage 3 cancer." Well, I didn't get up in the morning and say, I'm thankful I don't have cancer today, right? You don't become thankful until something negative happens. So we need to get more in an attitude of gratitude.
I know you go out there and live that. I know that you help a young man by racing and running. And then you go out there and serve as a mentor for people to keep moving. So the exercise is a big part of your practice personally, dealing with adversity.
This is my 50th year of running, and about 65,000 miles. I ran against Bruce Jenner in 1989. Exercise has just been wonderful for me, Peter. I'm blessed. I realize a lot of people, in fact, my optometrist and I were talking this morning. He was a guy that used to beat me in the dam to dam. He doesn't run anymore because his knees have given out. I'm blessed. The knees are still working. I push a young man in a wheelchair. And again, that whole thing of reaching out to others and helping others is I think I get more and more of a blessing and more of a lift in my mood than he does. It's just a blessing for me to be able to see how elated he is and how happy he is.
Yep, I know. For those of you that don't know, and they can get online and look you up, and you do this race by pushing a young man in a wheelchair and run these amazing distances, and that's just a most wonderful thing that you do. I got to thank you for that right off the top of my head. Now, we're going to take a short break. Afterwards, I'd like to invite you back to share some final comments and advice that can help people negotiate this beautiful landscape and all of its blessings called life. See you all after the break. You don't want to miss this.
Every second, 127 new devices connect to the internet. You can feel it happening, our digital world expanding with every breath. We're entering a whole new era of connectivity, and MediaCom will be ready to power it with one of the nation's first 10G platforms. We'll be bringing you more speed, more capacity, more security, and the power to do more than you ever dreamed possible.
Whether it's advice on managing your anxiety or tools to help you stay grounded, Coping-19 provides a range of resources and self-care tips to help you cope with this pandemic. We can help. Find the resources that work best for you at coping-19.org.
Welcome back. Today on Surviving Bad, we're talking about finding hope even in the darkest of times. Let's face it, things are going to go wrong, and it pays to have some ideas on what to do. Let's hear what advice Dr. Newkirk has to share. Doctor, you've got this idea about joy, a really fascinating spin on joy. I'd like to hear more about it.
Well, some time ago, I did a podcast on what I call joy robbers. I think there's 4 things that we need to self-reflect and see if these 4 things possibly are getting us down. Number 1, envy. Number 2, comparing constantly. Number 3, jealousy. And number 4, striving. I'd like to take that striving just for a couple seconds. As a younger man, I thought, boy, I'll be joyful if I get one more degree. I remember having the bachelor's degree and thinking, master's degree, boy, that'll be happiness. I got the master's degree, I needed to have a doctorate degree. I got the doctorate degree, I needed to have a postdoctorate fellowship. I needed to publish one more article. When I got a superintendency, I thought I'd be happy if I got a bigger superintendency. So that striving thing, not that it's not good to have a goal, but striving can take that joy away from us, along with the others that I mentioned, envy, jealousy, and comparing. I can constantly walk out my front door and compare myself to the neighbor. Oh, he's got a Jaguar. He's 20 years younger than I am, and he's got a Jaguar. Or he's got a bigger house. He's got a nicer job. Comparing is a joy robber it can be, not always, but it can be a real joy robber. And that whole thing of envy and jealousy goes along with the comparing. So those 4 things, I think, as you're going through tough times, also relate to getting us through those tough times. Because if you're comparing and saying, well, the neighbor never has tough times. Yeah, everything's great with him. How come I've always got tough times? And that whole comparing and striving and envy and jealousy, we need to reflect and see if we're doing that.
You know, we live in a world that seems like everything we see on television, on the media, just pushes that comparing and striving. It's like we're now immersed in all of this. It's got to be hard to sort of cancel out that noise. What would you suggest as advice for people to find a more calm center in life?
Well, I talk about, for me personally, there's a number of scripture verses that are really important to me. And so I feed my mind with 4 or 5 scripture verses. Thou wilt keep in perfect peace whose mind is stayed on thee. The Lord is my refuge and strength and ever-present help in trouble. And so I'm not here to preach, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a spiritual scriptural mantra, but you need to replace anything that's in there that's negative and replace it with positive. I don't care if you write something down that's beautiful on an index card and memorize it, or what you do, but you need to keep those negative voices quieted and put the positive voices in. Carolyn Leaf in her book calls it automaticity. When I start going down that bunny hole of thinking about the negative things, the neighbor doesn't have it as bad as I do. The neighbor has a better job. No, wait a second. I don't really know what's going on in my neighbor's life. He doesn't have it perfect either. I might not be able to see it, but all of us are dealing with stuff. All of us are dealing with things. So look at yourself, see whether you're doing this comparing, this envy, this striving, and this jealousy. Learn to live inside yourself and be happy for the things you've got. I tell people, don't say to yourself, I'd be happy if. Say to yourself, I'll be happy even though. Because that person that you're comparing to has got stuff and he needs to be doing the same thing. He's comparing also. Don't be thinking I would be happy if I had a better job. I will be happy even though I got the job that I've got.
Well, that's great advice. You've shared some wonderful comments with us today. Thank you so much for the work you do. And thank you all for joining us today. Check out our website, ahealthyiowa.org, for more information. And keep your eye on MediaCom MC22 for our next episode of Surviving Bad, where we explore Iowa's stories of survival, hope, and inspiration. On MediaCom MC22, your local programming leader.